Let's see this is going. Hey, we're live. Episode 169 is Life in Tech. I am Jason.
I'm still surprised that Jason is always surprised when we go live. Dan.
I'm TK.
Well, I've learned to live that there's no countdown. So this is much better than straight Hangouts used to be because it was really random how long it would take to start streaming. This is predictable, but it's still like you're not quite sure if it's second 8 or 9.
It happens. It's like Tony Ferguson when he does his woo and gets Dana White every single time.
He wasn't doing no woos last night.
Definitely not.
Now we're talking fights already. I watched some clips and I just stopped watching them because without a crowd, I just like.
Well, if Connor's not fighting, I don't really have too much of an interest in buying it.
No.
The people just don't move the needle for me.
So, speaking of moving needles,
TK?
Some tech farming updates. So there's 4 chicks in the house, and I don't mean my wife and my daughter. So we went to the feed store. Man, what a fun trip that was, dude. Just cool people in there, that are into livestock and farming and whatnot and whatever. Anyway. And so we go to get some supplies because the chicken coop is now finished, the big coop. And so this is like a 20.
Or is that the permanent one?
This is the movable but permanent one. So it's 20 feet long, 6 feet wide, 6 feet high. And it's up off the ground because it's built on what used to be an old hay bale trailer, right? So it's a kind of flatbed you can tow with a trailer, with a tractor, sorry. And so the idea is that in 2 weeks, when the 50 to 60 chickens show up, they're going to live in there until they're big enough, and then we'll have the door open up, and then they can free range. And every so many days or weeks, you move this trailer so that the radius that they're feeding in rotates, right? But they always have the coop to go back into. And so we're at this feed store, and Mrs. Pittman notices that this feed store is selling chickens, chicks specifically, little babies. And I got to be honest, man, they're pretty cool. There's something that takes me back to being a little kid and wanting to study dinosaurs. And you watch these little chickens move around with their little wings that aren't really wings yet. And there's something very like dinosaur about them. I don't know. So we got 4 chicks. I dig her approach though, because her idea was, look, there's some technological problems we have to solve with how to keep these chicks safe, especially when there's at scale 60 of them, because it's a lot. And so maybe I had to get 4. They were like $2 a piece. And, not that I want them to die, but, losing a couple chickens out of a group of 4 is very different than losing half of your 60. You know what I mean? And so I dug.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize they were that inexpensive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what we paid for the 60, but let's say it was $100, $2 a chick.
Yeah.
Depends on the breed. I know that it varies, but it's usually a couple bucks per chick. And so we got like a couple big bags of feed and a couple big bags of cedar shaving. And now we got these 4 chickens living in the bathroom with a heat lamp. So here's the real technological innovation though, because I'm not responsible for the chickens at all. Like, whatever, dude. But I am responsible for the mealworm farm. And so we set out in the beginning and said, if we're going to try and generate profit through this, we need to minimize our costs. And so, like, you can't not pay for chickens. Like, I don't know anybody that's just going to give me chicks. So you have to invest. And we decided that one way we can save money is, especially during the winter, not buying feed, because the feed is expensive. And so come to find out, this is one of the things I love about science and technology. You can go to pretty much any major university that has some type of ag tech program, and they publish all kinds of ag tech tables. Like if you plant this many green beans, within this much time, you'll generate this many pounds in green beans. And this exists for anything I've ever looked up. I've been able to find at least from a couple different universities. And sure enough, they also, because of animal husbandry, publish tables on, for instance, how much food per day does an average chicken eat? Well, it turns out it's about 1/4 pound of raw mass, whatever it is they're eating, right? And so you scale that up to 50, 60 chickens, and now you're talking about 15 pounds of food per day. So either they're going to roam around and get it, or you got to give it to them, or somehow mix it, right? I'm like, well, this is a solvable problem. So, I know how much 1,000 mealworms will cost to buy. I know how much the tins, the bins will be to make it. And so I've rigged up this system on paper where this is where the technology comes in. So it's going to be, the big plastic bins you can buy like at Target or whatever to put shit in with the lids. They're going to be stacked too. So the mealworms, I don't know if you guys know this, are beetles. Okay, harmless. They don't bite. No bullshit. They don't fly. But they're dark beetles. And then the beetle will lay eggs. The egg hatches into what we know as the mealworm, which is kind of like a shelled worm. And then that will turn into a pupa that looks kind of like really like an alien. And then that goes into the beetle, and then that's the life cycle. And so I was able to find in agricultural tables the average length of all those life cycles, the average number of eggs per adult, which is ginormous. I mean, no longer am I going to use like rabbits in math examples. Now it's beetles, because apparently one of these beetles, will lay about 400 to 500 eggs.
Wow.
It's life, or
yeah,
at a time, Dan.
Yeah, because they reach adulthood, they breed, they lay their eggs, and they're pretty much done. Like they ain't going on for another year for another breeding season. You know what I mean?
Got it.
So they're pretty disposable. And so I quickly figured out that, okay, in order to generate, because the next question I had then is, well, how many mealworms? Because you feed the chickens the beetle in its worm stage, right? They're about an inch long. They're kind of yellow orangey. They have a hard like insect shell to them. Okay, it's their larval stage. And it turns out that there's about 4,500 worms on average in a pound.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Now check this out. So if I start with 1,000 worms, within 2 months, I'll have 180,000. That's how fast I'm. Yeah.
Do the beetles die after they lay their eggs?
Soon after. I mean, they ain't going to live much longer. Yeah.
Right.
They don't die.
What are you going to do with the beetles?
They'll die off.
You've got 1 million beetles on your farm and nothing to eat the beetles.
Well, okay.
That's what I was thinking.
So check this out. So every 2 months, I get 180,000 worms for the chickens, but I also get 180,000 worms for me, because of course you have to split it off so you can keep regenerating your population. Apparently people, I knew people feed these to reptiles because I've had lizards that I've fed these to. That's how I know about them. But apparently people fish with them too. You know what else you can do with them? You can pate them and make burgers out of them.
Really?
Yeah. They're like pure protein. So
that's, just from that's a hard sell, like a marketing thing that you're doing that, right? People throw a hoolie when you take them and you get them beyond beef, and they got to eat. It's like a plant, and they flip out.
Yeah.
What do you eat? I'm gonna have half a pound of beetle today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like plan D. That's everything's gone south. Like, and I can't even go eat bark. I'll probably eat bark before I eat beetles. But anyway, so here's where the real technology comes in. So I have these stacked tins, right? And so the adult beetles live in the top. I'm going to cut the bottom out. I'm going to make a little think of like a canvas that you paint on. You know how it's like an inch deep, right? Because it has the wood frame. And so the beetles, they burrow when they lay their eggs. And so you fill this with, they eat oatmeal or bran. So you just buy some of the chicken feed they already have. You put it in there. They'll run around. And then when they're ready to lay their eggs, the beetles will burrow down to the bottom. They'll lay their eggs. The eggs will drop through, because I'm going to put window screen over it.
Mesh, yep.
Yep. And the eggs will just drop right through down into the bottom bin. Perfect. Okay. So a lot of people do that. Here's my technological innovation, because I want to be very careful about how many eggs am I producing per day so I can chart it. Because, of course, I've already started thinking about, can I put like creatine in the substrate and have these assholes eat it and get literally fatter, right? Who cares? I'll stick anything in there. Let's see what happens. Because
there's going to be a sci-fi show that's like 10 years from now where this happened and they took over the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, people want to know why PETA is constantly, monitoring this show to see all the cruel things Jason does to these animals.
I just want to make them better. You know what I mean? And I want to make my chickens do really well. You know what I mean? But look, man, every 2 months I'm generating 360,000 worms, so I have plenty to spare. Here's the real innovation. On the bottom, a lot of people put the substrate down in the bottom tray too, so that way the eggs go down, they hatch, and the worms come out, and then you just have it. I'm not doing that. I've taken the bottom one, and with a marker, I've painted a grid. Okay, like 1/2-inch squares, grid system. And now I have a camera, and I've been working on an artificial intelligence to, through the camera, watch the grid. So that way when the eggs just drop down, I get an automated count on average of how many eggs my beetles are generating.
Look at you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then now I just got to figure out, once those things start hatching, how I'm going to get them out of there.
See, now you made me want to go get 4 chickens so I can get 4 eggs a day. I don't need a whole bunch. Just give me those 4 working.
Yeah, well, the thing I didn't know either, because I've never really looked into it. First of all, at least in the state of North Carolina, we can sell up to 30 dozen in eggs a week without having to grade them. Okay, so once you go over 30 dozen eggs a week, you have to grade them. That's an FDA rule implemented through the state of North Carolina. But to grade them, you do it yourself. You don't have to pay anybody to do it, and it's a really simple process. You can charge more if they're graded. You also have to do what's called candling. So you have to hold the egg up to some light source and look at like the distribution of the air around the sac, and if there's a chicken there or an embryo, all this jazz.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's something you could probably end up automating too, but I haven't worked on that yet.
I'm sure that the huge egg farms every bit of that's automated, right?
Oh, yeah.
Has to be.
Right, to do it at scale. So I don't know, man. All of our chickens are capable of producing eggs, obviously. Half the population is specifically for egg production. The other half's for meat production. So the next problem I have to solve, which I'm going to have to use some technology for, is I'm in charge of the maternity ward. I think I told you guys that last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great analogy with being brutal to chickens from Stalin. Stalin basically in front of people basically took a live chicken and pulled all the feathers off the chicken while it was alive, sent the chicken off, and it was obviously a bloody mess because he just ripped the feathers out of this chicken manually. And then he put some food in his hand and the chicken came back and ate out of his hand. And he said, look, you can treat living beings as badly as you want. And as long as there's the appearance of you taking care of them, they'll always show back up.
Yeah, sure. There's something to that. I'll tell you the other thing. This is the last thing I'll say about it too. Especially having these little chicks when they're small now, it's actually a really good opportunity to teach our daughter how to handle them. So she likes checking on them. She likes making sure they're okay and they're sleeping. Of course, she likes to pet them because they're cute. You know what I mean? But
I think making kids not afraid of animals is huge.
Yeah, yeah.
And then understanding that they're living things as well, and you can't, what's the if you look at these mass shootings and things, I mean, they always start with either an order to commit or somebody that was on psychotropic drugs as a kid, ADHD things. But I bet if you dig deep, if you see a child that's abusive to animals, that person needs to go on a watch list immediately. Right? That's just not a normal behavior.
No, it's not. I mean, that's like checklist item number 1 in all the psychopathy.
Oh yeah, it's like, hey, you're gonna go over here. We're gonna put you in this bucket over here, and you're gonna hang out. We're gonna put a low jack up your butt because we want to know where you're at all times because you're not not a normal behavior.
Yeah,
because you're right. Kids they might inadvertently hurt an animal because they want to hug them and the old Bugs Bunny, I will love you and I will pet you and I will name you George.
Yeah.
Well, at what point do the egg-laying chickens become meat-eating chickens?
They have a long lifespan of egg generation, man. I don't know what that timetable is. Yeah. I mean, my wife handles all this part of it. I know it doesn't take long for them to reach maturity where they can start breeding and start producing eggs. It ought to be, because we're going to get them in 2 weeks, and then around the time that I'm able to start generating mealworms through production is about the time all those chickens will be mature enough to like go out on their own. They'll be laying eggs and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just some breeds lay better eggs and some breeds lay eggs longer. you know.
Right.
And so that's the separation between the breeds, as I understand it.
Are you going to have a butcher come in and do all that kind of work for the meat eating ones? Or are you all doing it yourself?
Her cousin's doing it.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get everybody's got a job.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. And it's nice too. I mean, it is kind of nice to have like a family little thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's essentially 3 families involved in it. It's us and her 2 cousins, or brother and sister. And it's all on her uncle's farm, which is this whole place. So, you know, part of it was livestock. They had hogs and chickens here before. And another part of it used to be tobacco, which is now hay. But tons of acres.
Wild boars on the land.
What's that?
When are you going to start having wild boar on the land so you can just, you know, practice your hunting skills?
Well,
wild boar is tasty, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know about wild.
Jason come down like Rambo out of the tree with a stake. And,
I mean, I don't know about wild pig. We don't have wild pig here, but we have a lot of turkey and deer. And so, I mean, if I wanted to, I could be shooting stuff now.
Elmer Fudd, just out there hunting wabbits. Exactly. Be very, very quiet.
I mean, we've talked about it before. It's definitely crossed my mind. It's just one of those things.
Just in your seersucker hat.
I say, boy.
Or would you have a different outfit for when you're hunting?
Oh, I would have a different outfit.
For years, I like venison.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you go to Germany, for example, there's 2 things that they do like we do beef and chicken here. They do venison and they do ostrich, right? And a venison loin and ostrich loin are just amazing pieces of protein to eat. And I got a friend I've known him for probably 25 years now, who owns a butcher shop. And one of the things he does is all the guys that I know that go out hunting, they'll basically field slice up a deer. They'll bring it in big coolers, and then he'll process it into proper cuts of meat. And he does that a lot during deer season. And for him, it's really profitable, right? Because he's just basically being charged as a laborer to cut that stuff up and grind it and turn it into whatever. And I always, when I go in there, I was like, hey, whose deer are you working on? And if I know the guy, I'll be like, chuck me a couple pounds of the loin or this, that, and the other thing. And he's like, I said, I'll call him right now if you want. He won't mind. And so over the years now, he'll call me and he goes, hey, so-and-so brought a deer and I got a couple pounds for you. But, ostriches are this, like, you want to talk about mean, right? I have a friend of mine who's, he's the best seal I know, right? If somebody says, oh, this guy's not all that in a bag of chips, I'm like, okay, you're an idiot. I immediately don't like you because he is the absolute, whether it's physically, mentally, just every skill set he's awesome at. We were skydiving out in Arizona, and near where we skydive is a ostrich ranch. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to go there. It's literally, they do everything just like they do with chickens. Obviously, the same near the family, but it's a contentious relationship between the ostrich and the farmer, right?
Oh yeah.
We're flying around and something happened. Something happened with the group that jumped out ahead of us, and we had to go do a big loop and come back in and get in the line to jump. And I'm generally cranky when that happens because every time you do that, it extends my day by half an hour. And I was in the back of the plane pitching. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, what's going on? I tell him, he goes, whatever you do, don't fly over the ostrich farm because if we got to get out of this airplane in an emergency, I don't want to land there. I'm petrified of ostriches. And I'm like, this dude is like, we call him the T-1000, right? He has no pain threshold. He had both his knees rebuilt. He was 45, 50 years old, put a big dip of Red Man in and go running 5-minute mile, right? And I'm like, he's scared of something? So end of the day, we're all going out to lunch because we start jumping at 2 a.m. and so we're done by noon, right? And I'm like, all right, what is up with the ostrich thing? He goes, man, when we were in high school, we wanted to pull a prank. So we went to the local ostrich farm to get us an ostrich, and we're gonna release him in the school. And we heard that if you put a bag over his head, they become docile, right? And I'm like, and everybody now is like, no, we're in. We got to hear this. I got to know the end of this, right?
Yeah.
one of his buddies jumps over the fence. He's got the bag, and the ostrich is just standing there like he's sleeping almost. And as soon as he gets near him, the ostrich goes bam and just beaks him and just starts brutally assaulting this young high school kid. And they're like, run, save yourself, run for your life. And he's like, he jumped over and he was beat up, like black and blue, like on his upper body where he was getting beat by this ostrich. And I go, so what happened then? He goes, we went and bought a bunch of mice from the store, released them in the school. Right? I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, but ever since that day, the only thing I'm scared of is ostrich.
They'll fuck you up.
Oh yeah, no, and we ended up kind of after that. A couple of us ended up like, let's go over to the ostrich farm and take the tour. And that was the big thing. We were talking with the owner. He goes, yeah, he goes, we're like some days we're in a fist fight with these birds, And he goes, they're just not. He goes, even a chicken is smarter than an ostrich. A chicken has the capacity to realize that you're taking care of them.
Yeah, true.
And they're they, in his words, he goes, they can express gratitude. He goes, ostrich, nope, dumb, can't, just thinks you're always there to kill them, right?
Yeah.
Goes, and they're about right most days.
Yeah. Well, like Dan, I don't know if you realized that when you came to stay with me in California, that area actually has a lot of livestock. It's like really weird the way it's built. This is in Yorba Linda, actually really close to the Nixon Library. And across the street from the townhome we lived in before you came, Dan, to the house we stayed in, across the street was a farm. And they had some rheas, which are like small ostriches, okay? And every once in a while, man, one of those things would hop the fence and get out and run for it. And these poor dudes would have to try and corner this thing up against this chain link fence, and it would fuck them up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
like 40 miles an hour?
Yeah, man. And they got sharp talons on their feet. They're dinosaurs, dude. They're straight up dinosaurs.
Yeah. They're one evolutionary step back.
Yeah. And they're fast and they're mean as shit. And they're also extremely dumb. And so this is like 6 lanes, right? 3 lanes one way, 3 lanes the other way, with a median in the middle. And I'm sitting in my townhouse on the porch, at the balcony, just smoking a cigarette or whatever with a cup of coffee or a scotch, watching these guys get wrecked. This thing clubbed all of them. It just took off running. I don't know if they ever caught it. It wasn't too long after this kept happening that like they got told to stop it by the city.
Every time somebody talks about chickens or also things like birds that can't fly effectively, I always think of that old WKRP thing at Thanksgiving. As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
We got a lot of we have a lot of turkeys around here, wild turkeys.
That's awesome.
It's turkey season right now. There's some friends of the family that come onto the land to hunt, and you can hear them most nights blasting away back there in the woods somewhere. Boom, 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 boom.
That means they're not hitting much if they're repeatedly just like a machine gun. You're not doing it right.
No, man. But yeah, it's not uncommon. I'll see deer most days in season, like in the fall, like in my front yard. Tons of turkeys running around. They run around like in groups of like 4 or 6, and they're big. They're not small. But,
well, I mean, look, you can get a 20, 30 pound dressed out turkey. I mean, that thing's probably 50 pounds.
Yeah,
on the hoof, as they say, right?
Yeah.
That's not a small, that's not a small feat.
Well, it reminds me in those moments, like talking about the ostriches or the rheas, or I mean, I've been chased by giant skunks around here. There's a giant albino skunk that lives down the street, and it's chased me.
By albino, do you mean the colors are reversed? Like there's a black?
No, I mean it's all white. It's completely white.
That's what I'm joking.
Yeah, and it's not small. It's big. It kind of reminds you that for as smart as we are, we really aren't at the top of the food chain in most cases. Like even a deer will wreck you. Like if it gets pissed off and charges you.
Oh yeah. But that's with all that, like I had friends that years ago, they went wild boar hunting in Georgia and they were going to use knives. Right. And I'm like, I got to see this. Right. I just out of morbid curiosity, I got to watch these guys hurt themselves. Right. And one of the guys, the only thing that's really dangerous on that animal is the tusks on the front, right? They'll shred a human leg, right? Just whatever they'll rip it in half, right? And so they snuck up on this thing, and he's getting this thing, and now all of a sudden from behind the thing turns around, and now he's got to deal with it. Well, whatever it is, he grabbed hold of his legs to keep keep him at bay, and he's holding him. Now I'm just laughing, right? I'm at some point I'm the adult supervision.
Or if he could hold its legs and keep it away.
Well, he's fighting this thing. I mean, he's literally in his mind fighting for his life. Well, he rolls the thing over, like he's wrestling with it now. He rolls the thing over, and now the back of the pig's on top of him, and he's holding it, and he's like he's more than a little bit insisting for help. And my buddy, who's got a big ass knife, goes over and stands above him like this, and is going to come down on the pig. And I'm like, ah! And like, the pig is this thick and the knife is this long, right? And I'm like, guys, like, just you got a 14-inch knife and a 12-inch pig, right? Where's the back end of that thing going to go? And so, he's now getting tired because he's a big, strong dude, but he's now getting worn out because he's in this concentric hold for his life to keep this pig from snouting him, right? And finally, like two of the other guys, they basically, it was just, and after that, I'm like, all right, let's go. It's time. We're done. All these
things you've been a part of, if you could have filmed them, you'd be a billionaire with your own YouTube channel at this point. This
is long before smartphones or even digital photography, right? This goes back into the early to mid 80s. Yeah, but it's like, dumb shit people do around wild animals just amazes me.
Well, you know what I love about that story? Because there's been times in my life, not that far in the past, where I've thought to myself, maybe I would go hunting like with a spear, like just to feel what that primal connection to the earth and to the wildlife is. And then I think to myself, it's not so much that I'm a pussy, it's that I realize that I'm pretty fragile, and I don't have any need to go hunt shit with a spear. But here's an example of dudes that said to themselves, we're going to go hunt this fucking thing with a knife. And then they did it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, and like I said, there's some trips where I'm like, I just got to go to watch.
Yeah. Well, and on one hand, it's easy for me to sit here and say that's dumb, because it is dumb. But on the other hand, there's a big part of me, it's like, that's pretty respectable, because you said you were going to do it and you went and did it. And it wasn't like the easiest thing to do.
I'm not a big hunter guy. Like, I think that, with the level of training that myself and guys like me were given on firearms, at some point it's not a sport, right? It's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
And, but like the guys that go out and they bow hunt,
mm-hmm.
right? You're doing it. And the big thing, especially about deer, any animal, it's like you got to keep them as soon as you hit them, you got to drop them, because if you don't, they start running around. All the adrenaline gets going. Now the meat's tough, and you basically just killed an animal you can never eat, which is not really what we should be doing, right?
Right.
And then it turns you into that jackass that owns Jimmy John's and goes out, trophy hunting and stuff like that, right? But that's relatively easy with a gun if you're properly trained to get the shot that'll just drop the animal where they stand. But that's you got to get a lot closer, and you've got to be a lot thing with a bow, right? And that's actually that's sporting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're going to eat it, have at it. Don't go kill an elephant and tell me you're going to eat it. But if you're out there and you get a deer or a elk or something like that,
a bear.
Tell you what, so there's the old retired SEAL. He's a Vietnam era guy. He runs the ranges up at Fort Greely in Alaska. Fort Greely in Alaska is in the Yukon Triangle, and it is cold. All right, we go up there, and this dude's at the time probably 60. He looks like he's 200 years old. Typical old Vietnam era frogmen. They just age really, really harshly. And when you go to the Fairbanks Airport, there's a massive brown bear in there, a big Kodiak bear. One of the things. That's like, I'm looking up at this thing at a 45-degree angle, and it says it was killed by this guy Craig. And I'm like, oh, well, the story behind it was they ended up that bear didn't go quietly. It grabbed him, threw him around for a while. His buddy was trying to shoot the bear again, ended up shooting him. There was and it's this big story. I mean, again, you've got to if you don't drop an animal like that, they're going to come get you.
Yeah.
They're going to come get you. Bear's going to be like, hey, what the hell was that?
Right. Yeah. I've thought to myself before, and like when we've talked about it, Dan, if I were going to hunt, first of all, it would be for meat. It's because, well, just get my own meat, right? And the connection to it, and you know what I mean, stuff like that. But I think I would do bow, just for the difficulty of it. I mean, I know how to fire a weapon. I mean, and to train to properly shoot ain't going to take long. So that's a solvable problem. But shooting a bow correctly and effectively is a whole nother level of skill, in my opinion.
Well, you can shoot a deer from 500 yards away. Right. You've got to be significant. You got to your hunting skills, the skill of getting close to that animal in a way that you can humanely, I guess is probably the best word to say, put the animal down. Right. That's the skill.
Yeah.
Now you're hunting. You're not. Right. I mean, you get a nice high-powered rifle and be able to take a deer down from a long way away before.
You get a high-powered rifle with some really badass optics. Yeah. It's like it's not a challenge, right?
Right. Exactly.
For a properly trained shooter, right? And your hunting skills don't have to be that great, because what do people do? They get salt licks. They get all sorts of things to entice the deer there. They cover themselves in deer urine, right? Which is another why, to me, it's like, but it's,
hey, whatever you're into.
Right. Exactly. I'm not here to sell you anything. Right. It's the old chickpea joke. But with a bow, you got work, you've got to learn how to be patient and stalk that animal and everything like that.
Right.
And if you get good with the bow, it's much easier to make, arrows than it is for you to make bullets.
Yeah. Well,
and nobody flips out if in your backyard practicing shooting the bow.
Exactly.
It's a big difference between shooting it at a bale of hay and being accurate, and then having that big animal standing 50 yards away from you while you're shaking, driving. Oh boy, I got it.
Right. See, and that's the other thing too. I mean, especially where I live, it's like I'm not exaggerating. Most nights around evening, you can hear somebody shooting a gun somewhere. It's not uncommon one bit. But I'm on the top of a hill, so I don't have an embankment to shoot into. So I would have to go down to one of the other properties to shoot. And look, man, I don't really want to go do that all the time. Whereas with a bow and arrow, I've even talked to my daughter about it, because she's all brave and she wants to be the little red-haired. Fine, man. And so I got her like one of the little bows. You know what I mean? She loves it.
Yeah.
And I think, what better way to pass it?
Shooting everyone with it.
No, she's actually really good about it, dude. But I mean, she tried. I mean, she's a kid. But you get outside, you get some fresh air. It's exercise, right? Because you're walking back and forth, if nothing else. And you get to spend a little time. And if nothing else, you're picking up what could be a survival skill in some cases, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
And that's kind of the connection back to the mealworm thing. That's why I volunteered. Nobody else wanted to do it because they don't want to deal with insects. Bugs don't really bother me, especially when I know they're there. And these ones are safe; they won't bite you, and they don't fly. I'm like, well, shit, man. Worst case scenario, I'm just making food. I mean, I don't really want to eat it. It ain't going to taste great, but it's better than dying.
Hey, but you'll have your what are the peppers? Your
the Reapers.
Oh yeah,
pepper sauce. Put a little pepper sauce on those Beetles, and you won't even know.
I'll tell you, man.
I think it would probably be better with like Old Bay, because you can put Old Bay on anything and turn it into a gourmet meal.
Yeah, sure.
Old Bay.
It's interesting though, man, because in the last week and a half we've gotten 2 frosts. So I actually have to go over after this and check on the garden, because I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. So the garden's in 2 parts. There's a suspended hydroponic system, and then there's the in-ground system. And the hydroponic system's pretty resistant to cold because of the way the system works. But the stuff that's in the ground will get fucked up by frost, and that's where all the peppers are. So I need to go check on them. It's another application of technology that could be there. I mean, there's things you could do with temperature sensors, really simple.
Temperature sensor, turn on the heat lamps if it reaches this.
Yeah, you could put covers over them just so the frost doesn't settle on top. See, a week and a half ago it wasn't so bad because most thing really hadn't sprouted yet. But now almost all of our plants in the ground have sprouted, and that's when it's bad, because when those little green leaves get frosted, they're going to die, and now the plant's going to die. Dude, I got so many strawberries. Our strawberry plants, we put them in right at the right time this year. We're already getting full-size strawberries.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That's the beach up here. It's Strawberry Festival time. They're now with all this things. Normally it's like all these farms, they have you pick.
Yeah,
and now they're out there picking and just putting them in buckets and letting people, they're trying to manage how they keep making money while in social distancing. I'm like, put people out on the farm, don't let them 6 feet together. I mean, how hard is that?
Right.
Get healthy,
It's interesting, man, because here, I think like in most places, our stay-at-home orders got lifted, but, groups 10 or less, still kind of the suggestion. But like, here's an example. What's your guys' advice for this? So I get an email from my department. Like all of us in the department are on this email, and somebody's throwing a party next week, and there's like a lot of social pressure to show up. And part of me is like, well, like I miss the people and I miss being part of the team. But on the other hand, like, is it smart a week after the orders get lifted to go hang out together? I don't know. I don't know how to deal with it yet.
Put on your Luchador Mask.
I have a mask. I mean, because Marcia's
like the full Luchador.
It's been a while since I've worn one.
And like the old school, actually it's still like the high school wrestling
singlet.
Yeah.
Gold Breakfast Club. So you wear tights? No, I wear the required
uniform.
Tights.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Go up in that, and then like your combat boots, and then they're not going to know it's you.
Don't ask me what happened in a movie in the last 5 years, but I can talk about ones that are 30 years old.
Well, as somebody that wrestled, that part of Breakfast Club, and do you remember the Matthew Modine movie Vision Quest?
Yep.
Was all about wrestling, man. That was all we watched growing up. That's all we watched.
We had a guy that during SEAL training, what we found out is, when you move past the first phase and you start learning actually practical skills like shooting guns and all that stuff, he was largely bummed out that it was actually not just a fitness club that we had signed up for, and he was like, the guys would start to call him Vision Quest, because he was just, his fitness thing was the thing, and like he was just bummed out every time we had to go do an evolution, we shot a gun or blew something up, right, and but when we got out to San Clemente Island, where you get cooks, he would put ketchup on everything. I mean, literally, like everything was covered in ketchup because the food was what it was, but it wasn't bad. But he just didn't like it, and we changed it for his name from Vision Quest to Ketchup Quest. And to this day, if I see him, that's the first thing I'm going to think about him is Ketchup Quest. In his 50s now, and if I saw him at a reunion or something like that, it'd be hey. And I'm right now I'm struggling to think of his name.
But it's Ketchup Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that was a good movie.
If any of my bud's classmates were watching this, they'd all be laughing their asses off right now because we invested a lot of time in that nickname.
See, once again, you have to earn it. You can't pick it yourself.
Yeah, and most times you don't really like the ones you get.
No, probably not. See, the only thing to me that's acceptable for ketchup is French fries. Outside of that, I can't think of anything else I put ketchup on.
I think there should be a constitutional amendment against putting ketchup on hot dogs.
I agree.
Well, why is this? Now I'm curious because I like ketchup on hot dogs.
Mustard or GTFO.
See, I'm not a big mustard person. Like, I don't mind like some more gourmet mustard, let's say, like dill seed, you know what I mean? Yeah. Stone ground mustard. Like on a good sandwich, sure. But ketchup and onions and relish on a hot dog, man. What are you talking about?
I like mustard, onions, and relish. Actually, when you get the diced jalapenos now that look like relish, they'll look like pickle relish. I'll put the diced jalapenos on there instead, and that is yummy. And on a hot dog, I like the gourmet mustards as well, but on a hot dog, I like the old school yellow mustard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I like to do the yellow mustard in any type of like vinegary, like hot sauce.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, basically, you're saucing it up to kind of taste like a Chicago dog.
Yeah.
Right.
See, you would like the barbecue down here then, Dan, because it's vinegar based.
Oh, I love Carolina.
Carolina barbecue is yes, please.
Yeah, I really like the coleslaw, which is basically just cabbage pickled in this vinegar sauce. That's tasty as shit. I love it.
Yeah, we make it all the time.
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see. My new next door neighbor is a big barbecuer, and with the faux meat shortage we have now, how that's going to affect those folks that want to get out there. I mean, you've all been places where you go to these world famous barbecue joints now, and people are lining up at 6 a.m. to eat lunch because they just want that brisket or that they want to taste that pork one time. I want to taste it sometime. I'm not standing in line for 5 hours to get it. I'll tell you that right now.
No, there's a place in Alabama where they did a big IT Air Force show. And I can't remember the name of the place, but I can tell you how to get there once I'm in the town.
Once you're on the ground?
Yeah. I'm like, all right, it's like, go to the barbecue place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. That was probably the best barbecue I've ever had, like, from someone doing it commercially.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. That guy probably doesn't make, hardly any money because, you're in whatever.
Right.
It's Huntsville, Alabama, or Montgomery.
They're in Greenville, Alabama.
Yeah. And, that outside of that IT show for the Air Force, it probably doesn't do a whole lot of money. But when that show comes into town, that place is packed.
Right.
Barbecue is about love, right? Because you're talking 12, 14 hours. You got to tend to those pork butts, and you want to eat at noon. Do the math of what time you got to get up and start tending to all that, right?
Right.
Whether it's a Salt Lick in Texas or Franklin Barbecue or any of the big boys, it now with the Traeger grills and the new pellet systems that are using technology to regulate the temperature and everything like that. It's almost, I think, for some of the old school barbecuers, it's like cheating because you can end up going to bed and just go, yeah, it's going to take care of it, right? And it's 14 hours. I'm going to go sleep for 8. I'll get up on the back end.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too to tie it back. There's a lot of science that suggests one of the big leaps forward for us in the development of our brain was our ability to cook our food, to kill it of parasites, enrich its nutrient content, and all that jazz. So it's interesting how we have this tie not only to fire but using fire to cook, and it really gets expressed, interestingly enough, right, through grilling or barbecuing.
Right. I'm a big believer. You get people that I love to cook, right? And I think that one of the best things you can do for another human is feed them, because it's not about keeping them alive. It's about showing them love.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's sharing resources and it's intimate.
Right.
Yeah. When your chickens start to lay eggs, you're getting close to winter. Are you going to paraffin wax them to keep the eggs?
What?
Yeah, so evidently, if you dip the eggs in paraffin wax, you can you don't have to refrigerate them. You don't have to refrigerate them. You just have to, you can pretty much keep them anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Over the winter, you got to store a bunch of eggs if you're going to keep having X amount of eggs,
Yeah. Non-pasteurized eggs don't have to be refrigerated at all, period. And they'll stay for a long time.
About people actually putting them in paraffin wax to have them keep longer.
Oh yeah, I've never heard of that, but you don't have to do that here because of our climate. Because even in the winter, it doesn't get that cold. There's plenty of places to store them. But yeah, like wild free range eggs, you don't have to refrigerate at all, and they last a long time, like weeks, months.
Interesting.
Without any treatment whatsoever. I mean, dude, that's the thing is you don't even have to go get them, right? I mean, you just leave them where they're at. No, the coop we built has doors on the outside on both sides, so it's like a long building, and there's roosting boxes inside on the bottom part, and because it's up on a trailer, it's almost like at your standing height, and so the door swings up on each side. There's 4 doors, 2 on each side, so it's not, because it's 20 feet long, right? There's a big door. So you just lift it up, and it has a little pole that drops down, so you can have the door up, and you got to crouch down, but you can reach right into the nest box where the chickens will lay their eggs. And so you just reach in there and pull the eggs out. That's probably where most of the eggs will be, but of course, because they'll be free range, they'll be pooping out eggs all over the place. And so you might be just wandering around finding eggs. And everything I've read, at least for here, because of our climate and these chickens, if you are walking around and you see an egg, it's pretty safe to eat. I mean, I would
when's your rooster showing up?
They're coming with them, man. So they're all showing up at the same time, and For some of the breeds, you don't have control over how many hens, how many roosters. Some of them you do. But on average, there should be about 1 rooster per 10 hens. So, 50 chickens, that should be about 5 roosters and 10 hens per. And then that's split half between 2 breeds. Or actually 3 breeds, because we got a couple. This is where Mrs. Pittman pays attention. So chickens are pretty picky about what eggs they sit on, right? And so because we have different breeds, we had to figure out how to control who's laying eggs where, right? And then Mrs. Pittman said, well, wait a minute. There's these other types of chickens that aren't great for meat. They ain't great for eggs, but what they're great at is they'll sit on anybody's eggs. They're kind of like midwives. And they're the ones that have like the frilly collars, and they look really cool aesthetically. Like you've probably seen the video that big chonkin rooster that comes out of the little house, and he's like giant. Yeah, that's the type of chicken this is. Except that's the rooster. We got the hens. We didn't get a rooster for them, because they just kind of do everything with everybody. If you dig what I'm saying. And they'll sit on anybody's eggs and help out. So we got a couple midwives. So technically, there's 3 breeds of chickens, but the main production of eggs and meat is two different breeds. Yep.
How long are these chickens supposed to live?
The meat
on
ones
average, what's the lifespan?
Couldn't tell you, man. It's a while. I mean, so like the egg chickens, they'll live way longer than they'll be producing eggs. But do you really want them around taking up resources, or you just say,
No.
Because of course, the big thing every fall here is chicken stew. Like that's all the farms get together, and each farm makes a giant. I mean, this cauldron is huge, dude. You could bake kids in it easily. It's a big witch's cauldron, and every farm has one, and it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. And so at the end of the harvest, like right around Halloween, people make chicken stew, and you just go around to all the farms with your little big mug, and you chill. And so apparently, where that comes from is that kind of coincides with the life cycle of egg-laying chickens, because their meat's a little tougher and it's not so good. So those are the chickens that you turn into the stew, because fuck it, it's a big vat of stew that I'll be honest with you.
It'll be braised in there long enough that
you're not gonna.
I'll be honest with you, man. I sometimes refer to it as wallpaper paste. Like it ain't my favorite thing to eat.
Well, because the people will over-roux it.
How do you know what wallpaper paste tastes like?
I remember being a little kid and helping my parents put wallpaper up.
This explains a lot.
Bus window liquor.
Haven't you ever been curious? You see something, you're like, I wonder what that tastes like.
Years ago, when Jared and one of his buddies, Jared wanted a gaming system years ago for Christmas. He was probably 11, 12 years old, maybe 12, 13, but in that range. And I said, well, rather than just buy him a gaming system, I went out and I bought a carcass and then bought all the parts to have him build the computer. Mm-hmm. Right? Do a little education. Well, one of his buddy's dads, who I'm friends with, called me. He's like, hey, Matt wants a computer for Christmas. And I said, well, why don't we do the same thing? I said, we're not doing anything at work, so I'm going to take him to work, and we have huge conference tables. I can put the boys side by side, right? And when you put the processor in, and then you have to put the heat sink on the top of the processor, and there's the heat sink paste.
Yeah.
The boys were both like, what does this taste like? I'm like, no, not
that one.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'd rather have you go lick. I'd rather have you go lick exposed wires or a 9-volt battery than put that heat sink paste in yourself.
Oops.
Yeah.
But so that's what happens, man. It's probably, I'm going to say it's a couple years of production you can get out of them.
I'm just trying to get out, because I haven't really done any of the research, but how many eggs do the chickens lay a day on average?
One, right?
Depends on the breed. Some are more prolific than others. So like the ones we have, what do? See, it's essentially one per day if you look at it that way. But the way the agricultural tables lay it out, they lay it out like per annum. And so the chickens we have, actually there's a better way to describe it. Here's the difference between the breeds as far as I've been able to figure it out. And this is not my part of the endeavor, so take this for what it's worth. is essentially what separates different breeds is the duration of a year in which they'll be active laying eggs. And so the breed we have will essentially lay an egg per day pretty much nonstop all year round. So they don't take a break. Whereas like the meat chickens will lay eggs because they're chickens, right? But let's say during the winter when it's cold, they're more affected, so they won't lay eggs. They'll just stop production.
So your meat chickens, how are you going to separate the eggs to get fertilized to turn into other chickens?
Well, that's why we have the maternity ward. So there's a percentage of chickens that are going to be taken out of the main population and segregated over into the maternity ward, which is a separate coop. And that's where the roosters will be. Well, some of the roosters. Because you also got to keep some of the roosters around because that's what helps the chickens survive. Like if a fox shows up, the number one defense mechanism is the rooster. The rooster will fight pretty much anything.
Yeah.
The second tier defense is my vote's for a donkey, but
the donkey could be your first line of defense. I would think
then you're required to talk like Donkey and Shrek every time you talk about the donkey.
And just name the donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I like donkeys. I think they're kind of cool. They're super helpful. I mean, they're labor animals, so they can help you pack stuff around the farm. Here's one of the big things that really turned me on to this, though, okay? So I read this, and then I had somebody tell it to me, and I don't know if it's true. But apparently, if you take a donkey, I think you were talking about this one time, TK, too, and you put it equidistant in between two food sources, it'll just stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I can't remember the name of the theorem, like it was because it's the scientist that basically did the experiment. I think his name begins with a B, but I can't remember. But yeah, you put them equidistant between. That's the theory, anyway. Is if they get confused as to where to go.
So they just stop. They just stand there. And so I asked one of the farm people here about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Okay, I don't think anybody's pulling my leg, but this is one of those things that I think I need to experience. Like I need to set this up and
or donkey, you guys. It's gonna. You're overnight.
Buy the donkey and have it show up.
What's that?
You could just buy the donkey and have it show up.
Yeah. Well, I told you down the road there's a sheep farm, and they have a donkey that hangs out in the flock, and that's why he's there. I mean, he's there because there's shitloads of coyotes and foxes around here. So anyway, man, yeah. But yeah, that's why we have the separate maternity ward.
Maintenance on a donkey compared to a horse.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah.
It'd be funny to see you riding that donkey.
I don't want to ride the donkey, man.
No, but I think it'd be funny to see.
I don't want to ride the donkey.
You have to ride its side saddle.
I just want him to hang out and help protect the flock, so to speak.
And talk with a Scottish accent to you.
I mean, if he does that, that's a bonus, man. But somebody better check on me because I've probably had too much scotch at that point.
You could rig up like an Alexa and try to get it, and just like rename it Donkey, and it'll talk back, and people will be like, "Look, my donkey can talk."
Did I tell you my Alexa story at the barbershop?
I don't think I've heard this one.
So I've had my hair cut by the same woman since early 90s, over 25 years now. And the barbershop that she's at right now, the owner really enjoys country music. And I don't share generally in that enjoyment. And they have an Alexa in there. And so when she's in there, they have to listen to country music. And then the minute she walks out, they change it to something else. Well, she was in there and this song was just killing me. And it was brutal to listen to. And as soon as she walked out the front door to go to the convenience store next door, I was like, everybody was laughing about the song. When she walked out, and I was like, Alexa, play me something that doesn't make me want to kill myself. And all the music came on, and when she walked back in, we're all laughing. And it was just, that's how quick Alexa can change what's going on.
That's hilarious.
True.
I have thought about micro drones. I talked about this before with the garden. We've long solved the pest problem for the garden. The only problem I have is insects, but we got ahead of that this year, so that's not a problem either. But with the flock, what's that?
Praying mantis eggs.
Yeah, praying mantises. Ladybugs do really good against the bugs we have that are pests. We do really well with diatomaceous earth. So we spread that throughout the garden, and we use it here around the house and stuff. And man, that keeps a lot of stuff out. Well, I mean, it doesn't keep it out; it kills them pretty fast. But
what's in pools in the filtering mechanism, you put DE in there, and it ends up on the filtering blades themselves. It light coating, and that's what keeps everything copacetic.
Yeah. Well, I just
praying mantis eggs because we know these new killer hornets are coming, and these praying mantises are going to destroy those killer hornets when they get released on us.
People underestimate how vicious of a predator a praying mantis is. They're vicious.
But you want them around, right? I'm not worried about a praying mantis killing me. I want it to take care of all the, even snakes. Like, if you've got a poisonous snake, a predator snake like rattlers and cottonmouths. Yes, if they're on the property, get rid of them because they're a safety hazard to your kids and everything like that, and chickens and other things. But your green snakes, your black snakes, they're just out there doing their thing in the ecosystem. Doing their part to keep everything rolling and how it's supposed to.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we had a couple last year at the garden, a couple of big black snakes, king snakes. Just leave them alone, man. They eat the rats and the mice. Get them out of here.
Yeah, all in on that. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of lizards around here, little gecko type things, and we saw one that poor lizard had been going to the gym. It was a big ass, strong looking lizard, right? It was about 4 inches long. Like, oh my goodness, because they're normally 2 inches long, right?
Right. But, yeah, we get a lot of frogs and toads around here. In fact, 2 days ago, my daughter just was yelling, "Mommy, Daddy, come see what I found!" And she just picked it up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like I think I've told this story before. When I was in college, I had met some young lady that grew up in New York City, and I was going to take her out to the suburbs to meet my mom and dad. And did I tell you guys this before?
Oh yeah, she didn't get out to meet your mom and dad.
No, I turned around. Like we're driving and we get out, and all of a sudden she's like, "That's an ugly dog." And I'm like, I'm looking. I'm in my car looking around like, "Where's the dog?" And she goes, "I'm like, what dog are you talking about?" And she's like, "Right there." And she points, and it was a goat. I basically found the next break in the road and turned around.
Done.
Look at work. Deal breaker.
No, my parents would have been like, "Are you effing kidding me?" It's like, well, it was like, well, I grew up in New York City, but you went to school, right? You read Old MacDonald, right? Something. I mean, but it's like, it baffles me.
Yeah, like growing up in Ohio, that was always, I don't know how true it was. I'm going to assume there was some truth to it in some way, right? Maybe not all the way true, but some truth that people would drive down from like Cleveland and go hunting, and they would end up shooting like a farmer's goat, thinking it was a deer.
Yeah,
and I always thought the same thing. Like, okay, I'm going to believe it.
I actually believe that's true because they're from Cleveland.
Shout out to our peeps in Cleveland.
Hey, I like it, man. It's a nice city.
I think it's great. Yeah. They rehabbed it. The downtown area. It kind of started with ballparks and stuff like that. But there's a great food scene in Clip. Michael Simon. Kind of that celebrity chef has gone back home to his hometown and really been thinking they've attracted an unbelievable food scene there.
Oh yeah. There used to be, and still is to some degree, although I've not been part of it for a long time, a really good like underground music scene.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, for a Rust Belt type city that kind of had to reinvent itself, I don't think it's done as well or not as fast as Pittsburgh.
Right.
Pittsburgh has completely.
They did really good pivoting.
Yeah,
but certainly Cleveland and Pittsburgh have done better than Detroit.
Right. Well, Detroit, I think they're doing it. I think they languished longer. Like they just didn't decide that. Pittsburgh said we are going to become an education and a medicine hub. We're getting rid of those 19th century, 20th century industries. And I remember like coming through the tunnel when I was a kid. Coming from my grandmother's house downtown with my grandfather. And, it was always that acrid coal smell.
Yeah.
It was either coal-fired power plants or it was the byproduct of making steel. And I remember years ago, I got off the airplane in Bosnia for the first time, and where we were at, there was a coal-fired power plant, and it basically just smelled like being at my grandmom's house every time. I was actually, I was like, man, it kind of took me back. But in the last couple of years, I've been going there. I've been going there on and off, and now it's a tech hub.
Yeah.
Right. There's a big finance, fin service hub there and everything like that. And you look around, there's Google there, there's Facebook there. All of these, anybody that needs PhDs in applied math, because they're standing outside of Carnegie Mellon to catch them with a butterfly net every May.
Yeah.
And 150, 200 grand in Pittsburgh goes a lot farther than it does out in California.
Oh yeah, it does.
For sure. So speaking of California, I think Elon Musk finally may be coming to his senses, looking to move Tesla out of California.
I'm going to move at the same time.
I was going to ask you. I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you brought it up. It's a good transition. What you think about him choosing to sue Alameda County? I mean, as a business person, do you think a state as a government has a right to tell you whether you can be open or not?
So I go to a certain extent, and I keep going back and forth. I think for a short period of time, that it's acceptable for a short period of time. The issue that I have, and why I go back and forth, is that this is the first time this has happened to us in the United States. But we know some type of coronavirus that's been like a COVID-19 has happened roughly, every 2, 3, 4 years. There's been another one. This is the first time it's really, at least, been out in the news to hit us. I can see us, taking this one time and doing it, but I'd want to know, well, government, what are you going to do the next time? Like, are you going to turn around in another 2 years, make me do this whole thing all over again because you haven't figured out, which is what part of your job is to manage a pandemic and make sure it doesn't happen? So one time I'm like, okay. A second time? All right, well, what the hell's going on? Now, I think Elon Musk does have a very good point because he does have factories in China. And when you're talking about someone who would have a protocol in place, I think he would be someone that I would likely trust more because he's been having to manage it while in China. And I would be looking at the government and I would say back to the company, the business, show me how you're going to keep your workers safe. And if the plan is reasonable, then I would have to, I think as a government, say, this sounds reasonable, go ahead. I put the burden back on it because, all right, you don't have to be monitoring every person, but as they're coming in, hey, do you have a temperature?
Right.
How are you feeling? They don't have to keep track and say, here's Johnny. You can, it's no different like they put on the UFC fight last night. And what did they do? They tested every single person to determine, are you popping hot for, I think they're only testing for coronavirus. I don't know that we actually have something that's going all the way down to SARS variant 2, COVID-19.
Right. Here's the
I
thing.
haven't seen any data to say that they really are or not.
Here's the thing. Let's take the political piece first. For example, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the governor has the right to quarantine people. It's in the Constitution, but he has the right to quarantine sick people to keep them away from healthy people.
Right.
Okay? And now you got people into their feelings, like you get on social media and everything like that, and they're like, oh, we got to get back to, well, what about my 80-year-old parents? Well, they need to stay at home. Like, we're not going to bunker in place and destroy the U.S. economy because we want to all be doing this together. It's not binary, right? And the work that we do where I work is we're very accurate. We're doing with companies and with governments now or local and state governments to say, hey, for example, in Virginia, I broke it down like the Virginia Beach area, the 7 cities down here, Richmond and Northern Virginia, the 3 distinct population centers of the state, right? Everything else is very low populated. And we can contrast and compare. But what you're seeing up on the television, this is the hard part socially. What you see on the television are graphs that they don't identify what the axes mean. And then they put lines. Yeah. That's artwork. It's not data.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You're an artist. You're not a data scientist or doing AI or anything like that. Right. So there's the there's the fear piece, and people like to get into their feelings, right? And this concept of everybody narking on people, I'm gonna, it's not going to work, right? As a citizenry, we're not going to take that, right? And we shouldn't, right? Your immune system is your best defense, and if you're not either, you're not immunocompromised, you're not the elderly. In Virginia, the big dirty secret is, of the almost 600 deaths we've had, over 500 of them happen in nursing homes. Right. So tell me that, and the other silly thing is people not being able to go on the beach and sit there and get a tan. The best thing you can do for yourself is vitamin C, vitamin D, get the infrared light, right? I mean, it's not hard science, right? It's not, we know how to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So then people start getting, you start getting that civil unrest because people feel like they're getting something put over on them. Right. And it takes somebody like an Elon Musk, like a big industry, to say, no, we're not doing this anymore. Right. I mean, the joke during the Obama administration was that Rick Perry, when he was the governor of Texas, should have had to declare himself a citizen of California because he was there talking business and leaving so much. Right. Why? Because he has a climate for business. Even, I think, the guy that makes sriracha sauce, unbelievable story of immigration, and it's who we want as American, naturalized Americans in this country. Came from Vietnam, started, they gave him some, he ended up getting all the right permits, and then somebody was downwind and they didn't like the odor, so then the state went back and tried to close him down. Rick Perry's like, come on to Texas, we got plenty of land, and people like hot sauce down there, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna, if Musk does two things: one, gets himself out of China to the full extent that he can, and then moves to a business-friendly state, that's a win all around for him, right? Where we're gonna have trouble, right, is in electronics. Like, how are we gonna? How long would it take us? And we talked about this in previous episodes of the exacting artisanship that is being able to build that, whether it's programming the robots or understanding how these factories need to be architected. Because as much as we've always been free flowing with information to China about how we design things and everything so they can help us build it, they're not going to return the favor. Right. And and by next week I'll have the name of this book. There's a book, and it's a furniture builder in North Carolina. As his business started to go away, he started to see knockoffs, and he wanted to know where they were. And he went to China and literally had to go out into the hinterland and find where they were being built. And this Chinese guy wanted to build the furniture, so he bought one and had it shipped to China and then deconstructed it. Right. And figured out how to make it. And now he was making it bigger, better, faster, and cheaper. But think about, this is the thing when people want to talk about goods and services from around the globe. As a nation, we can't blame China for our dependency on these goods and services. We can't blame anyone for our inability to build something, right? We were the global builders in the early to mid 20th century, right? That's what made, our industrial might is what saved the world, not manpower and fighting and stuff like that. Our industrial might is what won World War II. Our ability to outfit ourselves. When you take a fighter aircraft and it goes from drawing board to on the battlefield in 9 months or so, that's an amazing feat. I don't care that the planes weren't as complex then, neither were our building techniques, right? And they weren't a hazard to fly or anything like that. They were built, strongly built quality. But what does it say about America now when it's cheaper to fill up shipping containers, put them on ships, pay a crew to man that ship, all the logistics to get it off, and then get it in the distribution and system in the U.S. It's still cheaper than building stuff here. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be doing it.
Exactly. Right.
I don't even have to go look up the statistics online because it's basic common sense. People aren't going to pay more, right? It's the old Top Gun line. You screw up again, you're going to be flying rubber dog shit in a cargo plane out of Hong Kong, right? Why? Because they figured out how to make it, right? Mm-hmm. One of the great, I'm trying to think who said this. It was one of these motivational guys talking about Japan. After Japan, people knew that they would build a lot of stuff, but they weren't known for quality, right? And Mr. Sun, who's the guy that started Sony, he said that he wanted, he was here and somebody was joking about the drink umbrellas, that's what Japan produced. And so when he went back, he said, his stated goal for building Sony was to make the world know that Japan was building quality electronics, not Sony, right? And that's where that Renaissance thing, and then it went as China modernized and everything like that. But that's really what it takes. What's it going to take? Who's the visionary? More importantly, who runs for public office at the highest level anymore? We don't get Kennedys. We don't get Reagans. Right? We don't get great orators anymore. Right? We get the person that'll tolerate getting beat up by the media nonstop and take as much money from anybody as they can. And we did that again to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? People can yell and scream, and you can be an R or a D or a libertarian or whatever, but we've gotten what we asked for, right? We allowed all this to happen. And
we're going to have President Camacho.
What's that?
Soon we'll have President Camacho. I think that was his name from the movie
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
Right. Yeah. But that's, I mean,
kind of what President Trump is at the moment, I think.
Right. And I think some of it, we've really, sped up the clock on this with the 24-hour media, right? Because, by design, the Congress, the House was designed for potholes and, get stuff done, right? Be the legislators. And the Senate was designed to be deliberate for a reason, right? Because not everything can be done overnight. Well, now, every time somebody walks out of their office in Congress, they put a microphone in their face and they want a smart answer. It's an impossible ask, right? And most of the people asking questions are less knowledgeable. They have an agenda, right? And it's on both sides, right? I mean, the media in general is agenda driven, right? Because it's money, there's ratings.
Yeah.
Right? It's advertising. Something's got to be there, right? There's money in this pandemic, a lot of it, billions of dollars, whether it's the vaccine or politics. We're now in Michigan, for example, they're at 23% unemployment. That's depression level era unemployment, right? Why? Get everybody's asses back to work, right? If you're in an immunocompromised group, hey, don't go to the grocery store and mouth kiss your checkout girl, right? Be sensible about what you're doing, folks.
You really mean it.
Well, yeah. Unless you enjoy the silver bracelets, but you know what I mean. It's like let's have some common sense about it. Now you have politicians. Even if you make the wild assumption they're all being sinister for their own reasons, right? And I don't believe that. I think some of them are just flat out scared. Like this is a problem. There's no playbook for it, and you have to be original. Right. And that's when greatness rises to the top. We're not seeing that. Right. Across who's that out there going, no, this is what we're going to do and this is why. And explaining to the general public that because we're going to do mass testing, we expect to see a lot more positive results, either active or built immunity, right? Or antibodies. That's great. That's what we want to see. And make that a thing. Like we don't mind that. Right? I don't mind that at all. What I don't want to see is a rise in mortality or people going to the hospital and having to stay there. Right?
Yeah, right.
The problem, right? It's not binary. We want everybody to get tested, so we're going to know, and there's going to be a big spike in positive results. Positive results. If you test me for the antibodies for influenza, I've got them, right? And that's a good thing because the best defense against this is a strong immune system. We're going to get a lot of spike because now we've said, hey, hunker in place, don't expose yourself to anything. And that's everybody in society. That's not how this works. It just, it's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it's wrong to connect it back to your chart discussion. Like I told you guys a little bit ago, there's this party that might happen later this week. And, I feel compelled to go to it. But on the other hand, should I? And so the first thing I ask myself is, well, what's the current trend in this area for the virus?
I'll send it later today.
Well, and so I don't want to see a graph with like the number of cases. I want to see a graph that has a line for the number of cases. I want a line showing me the deployment of tests in relationship to that. I want a line on that same chart with the deaths, the mortalities associated with it, and maybe one or other data point. And that to me is more of a complete picture that would allow me to make an informed decision. Just telling me that there's 400 more cases today than there was yesterday doesn't tell me shit.
Right, but that's the thing. Most people they get wrapped up. It's the old argument, like in Congress, right? They'll go to when the left is beating up fossil fuels. They're like, ExxonMobil made $40 billion in profit last quarter. Or the next time it's a pet industry, they made 33% profit, right? Well, their 33% profit might have been $10.
Yeah, right.
That 40 billion in profit was a 4% return. You wouldn't invest in that because energy exploration is hugely expensive, right? And then people say, oh well, the numbers are the numbers. Well, yeah, the numbers are numbers, but how they're displayed and how you put them out there makes the difference. What you're talking about, what you want to know what we call the complete mortality rate. It's the ratio between the number of people that get it and the number of people that die.
That's right.
You have to consistently be dropping that, and what we call the R naught, R sub zero. The R naught is it's the communicability, right? When this first came out, and the thing is, what we're talking about from late February, early March is mutated into something different now. Right? Probably again and again. But this concept that, if I have it and I'm around both of you, in the early days, it was about 3.5 to 1. So both of you stand a really good chance of getting infected. Plus the thing, will that be where the regular flu, and this is what they were worried about, was at about 1.1 something. So yes, the flu is serious and everything like that, but its ability to exponentially get communicated through the population was less because of how that R naught was a lot lower. Well, now the R naught in most cases is in that low ones now. And it's as communicable as the flu, right? These are all things that if you say that out loud and you listen to medical professionals that work in emergency rooms, like, look, we got to get out there. We got to get immune to this. Or do I want to wait for a vaccine? Right. And SARS, they still don't have a vaccine. Right. And they said, we're this close away from it. Right. We're not, I don't think we're uncovering every rock, and we're not thinking critically about it. We're thinking emotionally about it. And there's, I think there's a lot of political reasons that we're doing it. And none of that is good. Right. Because right now people are sitting there with zero action while we're burning down an economy. Right. It doesn't have to be that way. Right. Protect the people that need to be protected. My God, stay inside if you're 80 years old. Right. Or you've got MS, or you've got lung cancer, or anything like that. But this is, I think, down the road, to go back forensically and look at how they've classified deaths. Right? Because there's money associated with how you die. In this case, right? If you're labeled as a COVID death, you get a certain amount more money from the insurance. It's all this stuff, right? But to go back and truly strip that down. Right, because in Italy, I think like 6,000 people. Sorry, I can't remember the full numbers, but it was a few thousand people died of the flu last year. At one point, like 56 had died this year. Well, what happened to those other people? Right, statistically, it's impossible because we have another strong flu season. They got labeled as COVID deaths. Right, and so if you're 80 years old and you have some sort of respiratory illness, did you die from COVID, or did you die because this finally caught up to you? Right. And whereas that to me is really honest discussion. And it's going to take a guy like Elon Musk. It's going to take big industry to say we're not doing this, because it's
going to take someone like it's not. I don't think it's necessarily a big industry. It's going to take someone who doesn't or is not concerned with what the government can or cannot do to them, and so. Like Elon Musk is like, hey, I've got my own money. I'm doing my own thing. Guess what? I'm still doing all this stuff cheaper than what NASA can do it. You want to fuck with me? I'll shut down this program. Now what?
Well, what are they paying?
Donald Trump isn't going to do it. A Warren Buffett isn't going to do it.
No. You look at something like, what is it, $10 or $20 million we pay the Russians for every man we put into space? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And we're going to be back in the business of putting people into space very shortly, right? And that like I said, you get somebody that has got people by the shorties and is like, yeah, fine, we're just not going to go to the space station. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
right.
Wait till whomever else figures it out.
Right, and I think that's while I'm not a huge fan of what all the things that Elon Musk does and stuff like that,
No.
at least what I do respect is like, hey, you're not going to continue to keep us from doing what we need to do.
Right.
And I have the means to fuck just as hard as what you do, Alameda County.
Right.
So
Yeah, well,
bring it.
Going back to work, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to open up the plants this week, and it's how do we do this sensibly, and where are numbers that you can rely on, right?
Exactly.
It's got to be easily explainable to the American public, and it can be. It's what we do. That's our whole thing is explainable, right? If we can't explain it to people, then we're not doing. It's like the Einstein thing. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't know it well enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
But I mean, you just I went to Costco yesterday, and I was like, as a species, we're doomed if that's
At your age. You mean you're the one of the people that's got to stay inside.
Hey, I'm past that. Once you get over 150, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you just kind of like come back around.
I know. It's funny because I knew he was waiting for that. I was like, at some point it's coming out, right? That I'm in an immunocompromised group.
Yeah.
But just like anything else, how do you stay healthy? You exercise, you eat right, you do all those things, right? And this is the smart ass that I am.
You take your vitamins and you say your prayers, brother.
Exactly. Great WWE reference, by the way. But there was I love every day there's a new poll taken. And one of it was 78% of people felt there was a list of what things you thought should be open first and shouldn't. 78% of people said that gyms should be remain closed. All right. If you go, and I'm not talking if you consider to be obese in the U.S. is a 25 BMI or above. Morbidly obese is like 30, right? Somewhere in there. 50+% of Americans fall into that group right there. If you add overweight, which is 20 BMI or higher, it's almost identical. The same number of people don't want the gyms to open as that are obese.
Right.
It's like you don't numbers without context, right? The context is who'd you ask?
Yeah.
Like you asked
Exactly.
your average American. Your average American does not work out.
Or did you ask 4 people and 3 gave you that answer? I mean,
Right.
that's 75%.
Again, there's no sample size or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
That's why I love Twitter polls, because Twitter polls, it's very decorative. You can see the sample size.
Yeah.
Right? And especially when it's something about humor, because everybody feels they can chime in because it's not a political issue, right? Or something, what movie do you like or something like that. And you'll get these huge samples of 10 or 12,000 people crowdsourced in half an hour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, I have got to get going.
You got to go shave your head again?
I got stuff. No, I'm pretty good today. Probably on Tuesday, got to do it again.
Are you going to keep the dome buff to a high medium shine?
I'm just using an electric razor. After I took the regular get it all off, I just used an electric razor and just.
Okay.
They make some because I've looked into it before. They make some good like shaving razors that are like a little hand molded thing specifically for.
Yeah, and there's a stick, like it's like a deodorant stick, but it's a desiccant to dry it out, make the hair, and then you rub that on your head. And then I have a buddy of mine who's been down to the wood for years, and that's what he does.
Yeah, I'm just using an electric razor.
So was that an aerodynamics choice?
Hydrodynamics.
Time.
What's that?
Just time. I don't have to. All right, I just want to get up and go. Get out of the shower. I don't even have to towel dry. It's like there's no.
Okay, we got to stop. This will never ever trend to a good place if this is where we're going right now.
Yeah. Oh, once again,
shower house is probably a good bookmark for us to.
Once again, we're seeing
everybody in the audience to put their fingers in their ears and sing loudly.
Yeah. Oh man! All right, fellas, I'm gonna go check on my garden and check on my pepper plants.
See you guys.
Everybody have a great day.
Yep. See you guys later. Take care. Cheers.